Connecting a battery to power your AEG Airsoft replica is quite essential to make it work. But for new players, and probably also a few experienced ones, there are questions about which of the two most popular connections is the better one. Mini-Tamiya and T-plug DINS connectors can be found in lots of Airsoft AEGs, but what are the advantages of those different connectors? As talked about in a previous video, the batteries that are used for Airsoft feature either a Mini-Tamiya or T-plug DINS connector. And through these connections, they power the motor that in turn drives the gears and make the replica shoot. There are other connectors available too, but these two are by far the most used. So today we're going to take a look at these two different types and explore what their advantages and disadvantages are. All so you can make a well-informed decision when it comes to the connector inside the replica and on your battery. To start with the one that has been used for a long time already and is still prevalent in lots of Airsoft replicas, the Mini-Tamiya connector. This connector derives from the original large Tamiya connector, which can often be found on remote control cars. The Mini-Tamiya is, hence its name, a more compact version of this type of connector. It uses a male and female connector to establish the connection. The female connector comprises a polymer shell and inner contacts, and the male connector has a polymer shell and two inner prong contacts, which interface with the contacts within the female connector. The clip on the female connector clicks into place on the male variant to keep the two firmly in place. The Mini-Tamiya connector is very common and can be found on batteries intended for all sorts of other hobbies. And as such, with a Mini-Tamiya, you will most likely never be in a situation where you cannot get the battery you need. On the other hand, the Mini-Tamiya is an older design, more suited for low power demands due to its comparatively high resistance. And generally, an AEG with a Mini-Tamiya connector will have a slightly lower rate of fire than the same AEG with a T-plug DINS connector. In more recent years, another connector has grown in popularity and can now be found on more and more batteries and even pre-installed inside replicas. This is the T-plug DINS connector. Back in the day, this connector was seen as the go-to upgrade for the more technical airsofters, to save battery space because of its smaller connector size and increase the electrical efficiency of the replica. But, as said, in recent years this connector type has become so popular that replicas can be seen more and more with it pre-installed from the factory. The DINS connector is comprised of a polymer shell housing two large copper contacts. Unlike the Mini-Tamiya style connectors, the male connector has its contacts entirely exposed. The DINS connector has no clip to secure the male and female connectors and instead relies on friction to keep the two connected. The design of the DINS connector has an inherently lower resistance than the Mini-Tamiya connector, and as such is more efficient in delivering power from the battery to the motor. But due to the exposed nature of the connector pins, the exposed contacts have a heightened risk of damage or corrosion if the replica they are in is not properly cared for. It used to be harder to find batteries and replicas that offer a T-plug DINS connection, but in recent years they can be found in an increasing number. For example, the batteries from Krale and Titan can be found in both a Mini-Tamiya and T-plug DINS configuration. And replicas like the KWA Ronin 47 and the Crytek Chris Vector already contain a T-plug DINS connector inside. So now to summarize the advantages and disadvantages of these two connectors. Mini-Tamiya, thanks to the way the contact pins are housed in a polymer casing, offers better protection against corrosion, or at least a lower chance of it happening. Because DINS connectors have the pins exposed, this can result in more wear and corrosion. Mini-Tamiya also offers a strong connection when it comes to the two parts staying together. Thanks to the clip that the polymer housing features, the male and female connectors are less likely to come loose. As DINS connectors only stay connected using friction, it might result in a battery coming loose from the replica during play. In reality, this doesn't happen too often, but it's something to keep in mind. But the way the DINS connectors are held in place by friction also make it so that it has a very tight and snug fit. This results in a lower chance of electrical arcing, something that can happen faster with Mini-Tamiya connections because of their loose fit. This snug fit and the nature of the DINS connector also offer a very low resistance when compared to the Mini-Tamiya connector. Thanks to this, the DINS connector offers better efficiency and can even result in the replica having a higher rate of fire than when it's equipped with a Mini-Tamiya variant. Do keep in mind that when using an adapter which converts your Mini-Tamiya connection to DINs, or vice versa, the efficiency goes down. For every additional connector that is between the battery and the replica's connector, the efficiency gets worse and the rate of fire might also decrease. Finally, the DINs connector has a smaller footprint, so it takes up less space inside the battery compartment than a Mini-Tamiya does, offering more space for the actual battery to be stored. Whilst the Mini-Tamiya connector can still be found in many replicas, slowly but surely manufacturers are moving over to the DINs connectors, especially on more complex, high-performance AEGs with high current draw due to an onboard MOSFET or ETU. The difference in resistance between the two connectors does exist, but it's quite minor and usually results in a DINs AEG shooting around 2 rounds per second faster than a Mini-Tamiya equipped AEG. Whether or not DINs is worth it depends entirely on your setup and what you want to do with it. If you're going for the highest rate of fire possible, then a DINs connector is desirable. If you want a more realistic rate of fire, then DINs probably isn't necessary for your purposes. If your AEG has a tiny battery compartment and you need extra space for a bigger battery, using DINs will result in a little bit more space for that battery. In the end, it all comes down to personal preference. But with this information, we hope to have given you a bit more insight as to the differences between these two connectors. If you're looking for any of these connectors or other airsoft gear, don't hesitate to check out our website krale.shop. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.